Attorney General William Barr and President Donald Trump are constitutionally obligated to enforce the law, prevent intelligence abuses, and to root out corruption. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about what President Trump and Attorney General William Barr are doing to get to the bottom of the phony Russiagate allegations by intelligence agencies and Barr's predecessors at the Justice Department that falsely accused President Donald Trump of being a Russian agent. That wasn't true. And they engaged in a 3-year investigation, 2 years with special counsel Robert Mueller at the top of it. It included Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act surveillance by intelligence agencies and the Justice Department in an election year on the opposition party, and it was falsely grounded. We know that now from the Mueller report. And now we're trying to get to the bottom of what really happened here. And in the meantime, Democrats and House Democrats under Nancy Pelosi's leadership are acting like the president and the attorney general have no business enforcing the law. And nothing could be further from the truth. To hear House Democrats and left-wing media outlets tell it, any discharge of President Trump's official duties under the Constitution that might tangentially benefit him politically, that's the high crime and misdemeanor. That's why they're impeaching him. But presidents and their attorney generals are supposed to enforce the law under the Constitution. They're supposed to prevent intelligence and spy powers from being abused, and they're supposed to root out public corruption if there is any. It's like saying that creating jobs or improving the economy is a personal political interest and therefore impeachable. It's a silly argument to make, but here we are. This is what we're going to drag the nation through for the next several months now. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. In this case, Speaker Pelosi is referring to the now declassified discussion by President Donald Trump with the president of Ukraine, newly elected Volodymyr Zelensky. Pelosi says, quote, "This week the president has admitted to asking the president of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. Therefore, today I'm announcing the House of Representatives is moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella." That was on September 24. But here's what really happened. President Trump was requesting mutual legal assistance for Attorney General William Barr's ongoing investigation into these phony Russiagate allegations and this intelligence agency spying on President Trump's campaign in 2016 on false allegations. They said he was a Russian spy. They said the Trump campaign was proceeding with the Russians to hack the DNC and the John Podesta emails, put them on WikiLeaks, said it was with the full knowledge and support of the Trump campaign. They accused Paul Manafort and Carter Page with having something to do with this. But we now know, fast forwarding to Bob Mueller's report to look into this allegation that the president was a Russian agent and his campaign, and they came back and they didn't find it. Quote, "The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities." And, quote, "The evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference." And that was despite the fact that they had FISA warrants, the Justice Department, therefore had access to Trump campaign emails, phone calls, text messages, and other documents. And there was unprecedented cooperation by the White House with the Mueller investigation in turning over documents to the special counsel. He looked at it all and he couldn't find it. Sorry, it just didn't exist. It was a false allegation. And so we need to get to the bottom of why President Trump was falsely accused, who was responsible for that. You had these allegations by former British spy Christopher Steele. He was working for the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and he was saying President Trump was a Russian agent. This resulted in Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court warrants against the Trump campaign. And again, they had access to everything. They couldn't find what they were looking for because it didn't exist. It was a phony allegation. Now, with Trump, he's requesting now mutual legal assistance. He's allowed to do that under law. We have a treaty between the United States and Ukraine to cooperate on legal matters, where both parties are required to cooperate on any legal proceedings that involves both countries. That's what the treaty is for. That was signed in 1998. and it's a good treaty. We should be able to cooperate with allies overseas, like Ukraine, on legal matters. That it could be a criminal matter. There could have been several federal laws broken by this unbelievable abuse of power by the Obama administration, using false allegations that were paid for by Trump's political opponents, and then feeding that to the Justice Department and the FISA court, and making that as if this was a legitimate basis for an investigation. It was illegitimate because it was false. It was made up. Now, when Trump and Barr and the Justice Department come forward with their findings, it could very well turn up abuses by the Obama administration. This could be, there could have been criminal wrongdoing. And presidents and attorneys general are supposed to enforce the law. Under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, the president shall, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. For Barr's part, he oversees the nation's Justice Department and is responsible for ensuring that the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is not abused for political gain, and to look into phony allegations. The nation has an interest in ensuring that this sort of thing never happens again. You can't be spying on the opposition party in an election year on fake allegations, and that's wrong. It shouldn't happen. Zelensky now has pledged his government would cooperate with Barr's investigation of the false Russiagate investigation, saying, I plan to surround myself with great people, quote, and in addition to that investigation, I guarantee as the president of Ukraine that all the investigations will be done openly and candidly. That I can assure you. And President Trump, he responded to that. He was very interested to hear that, and because he had said, I want you to do a favor for us. Look at these phony Russiagate allegations. Ukraine, some of these allegations could have originated there, and we want you to get to the bottom of that. That would be very helpful to Barr's investigation. This is a top-level, high-level introduction of Barr to the Ukrainians, and that's you can do that. That's diplomacy. This is enforcing a treaty. Now, Trump responds to Zelensky saying he's going to help out, where he says all the investigations will be done openly and candidly. And Trump says, that's good, because I heard you had a prosecutor who was very good and he was shut down, and that's really unfair. A lot of people are talking about that, the way they shut down your very good prosecutor and you had some very bad people involved. He goes on to say there's a lot of talk about Joe Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. And he's not wrong. Joe Biden was bragging that he had the prosecutor general in Ukraine fired in 2016 by threatening $1.2 billion of loan guarantees. Here's what Biden said, quote, I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was about 6 hours. And I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. The person who was solid was looking into Burisma Holdings for corruption, tax evasion, and things like that. And Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, has been serving on the on this board of directors that Biden is getting off the hook and having the prosecutor sacked. And now the prosecutor saying under oath that he was fired because of this investigation into Burisma Holdings, because he was investigating Biden. Doesn't that sound like at least a conflict of interest? Now, President Obama at the time might have had his own reasons for threatening the loan guarantees. He might have had his own reasons for saying that the prosecutor general should be fired and making that recommendation. He could have sent Joe Biden there to do that. But no one's really asking the question, was Obama aware that Biden was doing this, that he was threatening the loan guarantees, that he was having the prosecutor general fired? And oh yeah, that the prosecutor general says he was investigating Burisma Holdings, which Biden's son worked for? If so, then maybe Obama should have been the one to deliver this message, because there's a conflict of interest. This is an appearance of impropriety in the least. And I think that Trump is right to raise it, because it could have a lot to do with corruption in Ukraine. It could have a lot to do with this Ukraine involvement with the phony Russiagate counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign in 2016, which Barr is legitimately trying to get to the bottom of. It may not be possible to separate what Joe Biden's role in Ukraine was from this counterintelligence investigation, which may have had some of its origins in Ukraine. Biden was put in charge of Ukraine. He's like a Roman provincial governor. He was put in charge there by President Obama in 2014, and Obama and Biden, they helped to overthrow the government of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, in 2014. Joe Biden was bragging about it in his book. He said a popular demonstration which started out at a square in Kiev in late 2013 when Viktor Yanukovych reneged on his promise to take the country into the European Union had grown from a spontaneous eruption to a real political movement, one that Yanukovych mishandled badly. Now, by Biden's account, he was the one who prompted Yanukovych to flee the capital, Kiev. There was violence in the streets, and Biden was blaming Yanukovych. There was a lot of shootings, I think, on both sides there. We've covered this. But he said he made the last of many urgent calls to Yanukovych in late February 2014. I was telling him it was over, time to call off your gunmen. And then the next day, the disgraced president of Ukraine fled Ukraine the next day. So Biden had a clear role in Ukraine that I think might be inseparable. If Ukraine had something to do with this counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign, Joe Biden probably knew about it. And Barr is right to look at Biden. If he is going to look at Biden, they should be looking at what the role the Obama administration was playing in this, basically what was a coup d'etat. You had a months-long protest that got violent in the streets, and then the president, duly elected president of Ukraine, is fleeing the capital, and Obama and Biden, the State Department in Ukraine, I presume the Central Intelligence Agency, they were supporting these protests. They were supporting this coup, and they had Yanukovych removed, and then they legitimized it afterward. And I think that the Ukrainians now, maybe they feel like that the civil war that started as a result of this involvement, maybe they blame Biden, maybe they blame Obama. They just overwhelmingly elected Volodymyr Zelensky, and he beat Poroshenko, which was Biden's, the person Biden was backing. You can see him pictured here. They had several meetings in 2014 with Poroshenko, with Biden and the State Department, and this was their guy. And then there was a lot of corruption that followed there. Burisma Holdings could just be the tip of the iceberg there, but Biden certainly had the prosecutor general there fired. And so Zelensky gets elected with over 70% of the vote on an anti-corruption platform. And is anyone surprised that Poroshenko got the tar beat out of him on this? But now Trump responds, I heard you had a prosecutor fired. That's all true. Trump is referring to the corruption in Ukraine that the U.S. helped to fuel sometimes with the help of Joe Biden. And he was Obama's provincial governor in Ukraine. And Hunter Biden was working for the company that the prosecutor general that Biden had fired worked for. So Zelensky, for his part, was overwhelmingly elected on the anti-corruption platform. So he clearly has an interest in ensuring that members of his government, especially prosecutors charged with ensuring the rule of law, are not subjected to foreign coercion and pressure for potentially corrupt purposes. Biden was using foreign assistance to get a prosecutor fired is again relevant also to Trump's discharge of his foreign affairs duties as he seeks to improve relations with Ukraine. Was Obama aware about these loan guarantees being threatened? What about the State Department? Did Ukraine feel pressured, and did it harm relations with the United States or hurt the Poroshenko administration's public image with the Ukrainians? What legitimate foreign policy purpose or objective was served here? I think that Trump is right to try to get to the bottom of that in pursuing relations with Ukraine. I think that Barr might need to look at that as part of his investigation into the counterintelligence probe of Trump. Now, Trump was accused of withholding military assistance by implication. A review of military assistance was completed on September 11th, though, and the aid was released. I think that what happened there, Trump was asking the State Department and the Defense Department to review military assistance to Ukraine in light of the fact that you had a newly elected president, and you want to make sure you can trust him. You're going to give weapons to somebody that might be unfriendly to the United States. Turns out Trump and Zelensky have a really good relationship, and if anything, on the phone call in the transcript, the only mention of military assistance. Trump's accused of withholding military assistance to pressure him to investigate Joe Biden, but actually Zelensky is thanking the U.S. for its assistance, particularly particular with these javelins and the other weapons that we're providing there. And the only other mention of military aid there is Zelensky and Trump complaining that France and Germany and other European countries are not doing enough to help support Ukraine. So I don't see what the objection is here. Trump's carrying on his foreign affairs, and they're pursuing legal matters that the president and Barr have every right and responsibility under the Constitution to investigate. They got to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is there to protect against abuses by intelligence agencies on U.S. soil. And that's exactly what happened. They were abusing the FISA statute on phony allegations that there was some foreign infiltration of the Trump campaign, and it just turned out not to be true. It was made up by the Clinton campaign and her surrogates and this Christopher Steele British spy. They were the ones going to get foreign dirt on President Trump. It's unbelievable. Anyways, Trump and Barr have a legitimate interest in rooting out potential corruption as it relates to this and executing the law, even if those who are breaking the law are members of the opposition party and are doing it overseas. To be fair, that would have been the justification of the Obama administration's counterintelligence probe into Trump in 2016, which could have been legitimate. The FBI is supposed to prevent foreign infiltration of the nation's governmental institutions. The reason the spy was illegitimate was not because it was done on the opposition party in the election year, although that would have been a reason to take great care with what they were doing with this probe and to verify the facts, which was not done, apparently. It is because the allegations were made up out of whole cloth, and the agencies might have had reason to know that it was all fake. And when Robert Mueller looked at Trump, he didn't find any collusion. He didn't find any conspiracy with Russia. The facts could have destroyed Trump, but they didn't, because he was innocent all along, and he knew it. Former FBI Director James Comey was fired ultimately because he lied to Trump about the extent of the investigation, and Trump knew it was fatally flawed. He knew he was innocent, that he was not a Russian agent, and so he had every reason to fire James Comey, and there evaporated any pretense of an obstruction of justice charge. That's why Barr let him off. Trump is enforcing his own responsibilities as the head of the executive branch in charge with enforcing the law, and his FBI director, or the acting FBI director at the time, was abusing his power and trying to bring up the president of the United States on false charges, and Trump knew it, so he had him fired. Again, Trump, as the head of the executive branch, has a responsibility to oversee all of the officers of the executive branch, including James Comey, and the buck stops there. It's the president's responsibility to ensure that any fake investigations are stopped dead in their tracks, and Barr's job is, as the head of the Justice Department, is to make sure this never happens again. That's what his task is. It's a heavy task, but he's doing what he's got to do. As Pelosi said in her impeachment announcement, quote, "No one is above the law." You know what? That includes Democrats and intelligence agencies. If there were laws broken with this counterintelligence investigation into President Trump and his campaign in 2016, Barr's going to find out about it. Now, there may not be violations of the law, but that Barr has every right to look into that, and Trump has every right to look into that as well. They're both tasked with enforcing the law. Now we turn our attention to the breathless reporting from the New York Times on September 30th that President Trump also requested mutual legal assistance for Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison to get to the bottom of the phony Russiagate investigation. Now, this came out on September 30th. Trump pressed Australian leader to help Barr investigate Mueller inquiry's origins. President Trump pushed the Australian Prime Minister during a recent telephone call to help Attorney General William Barr gather information for a Justice Department inquiry that Mr. Trump hopes will discredit the Mueller investigation, according to two American officials with knowledge of this call. This is ridiculous. This would be the fourth time that a conversation between heads of state, between the United States, this happened twice in 2017 with Australia and with the leader of Mexico, and now it's happened twice here in 2019. Where these high-level discussions are being leaked illegally. These are classified. And the fact is that Trump's pursuing a legitimate U.S. interest, I think, in ensuring that foreign intelligence agencies are not getting involved in U.S. elections and bringing up the Republican nominee for president up on false charges that he's a Russian agent. If it's legitimate to investigate Russia's interference in the elections, well, then you got to look at British interference, Australian interference, Italian interference, Ukrainian interference. It all applies. Just because those are allies doesn't mean that they were in the right. And in fact, we know now from the Mueller report that they were phony allegations. And these FISA warrants, they were based on fake intelligence made up by Christopher Steele, this British spy. Maybe he was given bad information. Maybe his sources led him astray. Maybe he says his sources were Kremlin officials. So maybe it was all Russian disinformation, benefited it out. But we want to find out about that. Barr needs to find out about that, and he needs to report back to the American people just what the heck was going on in 2016. We can't have this happening in America. This is not a banana republic. We have a constitution, we have a rule of law, and you can't have domestic spying like this going on and then bringing up carried over into a new administration and then lie to the president of the United States about the extent of the investigation in the hopes that you're going to nail him for something. That was an extreme abuse of power by Comey, the FBI, the Justice Department, and the intelligence agencies. We got to make sure this is not going on. And oh, by the way, this conversation between President Trump and the Prime Minister of Australia, the whole thing was initiated by the Australians on May 28th in a signed letter from the ambassador. Here's the letter between from the Honorable Joe Hockey, he's the ambassador to the United States, to the Honorable William P. Barr, and they CC the White House on this. Dear Attorney General, this was on May 28th. I refer to President Trump's announcement on May 24 that you will investigate the origins of the FBI probe into Russian links into the 2016 election. I note that the president referred to Australia, the United Kingdom, and the Ukraine as potential stakeholders. Moreover, I note he has declassified intelligence material to support your investigation. The Australian government will use its best endeavors to support your efforts on this matter, while Australia's former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, the Honorable Alexander Downer, who, by the way, factors heavily into Barr's investigation, is no longer employed by the government, we stand ready to provide you with all relevant information to support your inquiries. The acting White House Chief of Staff, the Honorable Michael Mulvaney, has been copied on this letter. So Australia was saying, you know what, we're going to help you out with this investigation. Maybe they think it was an abuse of power too. We note here that Downer, who was the one who actually contacted the FBI about George Papadopoulos on this idea that Joseph Mifsud, this was supposed Russian agent, but Mueller never said he was a Russian agent. It just that Papadopoulos thought he was a Russian agent, was offering supposed Hillary Clinton emails from a private server to Papadopoulos, and that was supposedly the genesis of the Russiagate investigation, was Mifsud meeting with Papadopoulos. But in the meantime, we're starting to be revealed that this Mifsud character, maybe he was a double agent. He certainly appeared to have contacts in Russia, although he makes a phony introduction into Vladimir Putin's niece to Papadopoulos, but Putin has no niece. But in the meantime, he may be linked to Western intelligence. He may have been working with Downer and some of these other figures that Barr is looking at right now. So we don't know everything yet. Not everything's been declassified as of yet or made public. So we need to get to the bottom of that in order to figure out what the extent of Australian cooperation with the FBI was, what the extent of UK cooperation with the FBI and intelligence agencies was, Italy, and Ukraine. Let's look at it all. Let the facts be known and let justice be done, though the heavens fall. If intelligence agencies were breaking the laws in 2016, spying on Trump, let's just get it over with. Let's find out about it, and Barr needs to clean house. That's what needs to happen there. Now here, inadvertently, the Times reveals the true concern by partisans with Trump and Barr's probe. They're not worried really about Trump looking into Biden's clear overreach in Ukraine at all, which is public information. And oh, by the way, Zelensky told Trump in the conversation that he was aware of what was going on with Biden and the firing of the prosecutor general. Quote, I understand and I'm knowledgeable about the situation, referring to the firing of the prosecutor general. No, they're worried about foreign cooperation with Barr's probe into the Russiagate witch hunt, which Barr is obligated under the law to complete. Again, he oversees implementation of FISA, and he has to prevent abuses. The Washington, D.C. establishment is terrified that what Barr might find about the spying and who is responsible. And so the impeachment push really stands out as an attempt, and a desperate one at that, to discredit ahead of time whatever Barr might find. That makes Barr and the Justice Department are true targets of this impeachment coup by Democrats, which good luck with that. And I'll leave you with the close here. Already, House Democrats have abandoned the entire original logic of the counterintelligence investigation, the false allegations that Trump was a Russian agent. They're not doing that anymore. Now they're saying, oh, Trump's trying to dig up dirt from Ukraine, which is kind of, a proxy war with Russia right now. There's a civil war. Crimea was annexed by Russia. So now they're saying, oh, Trump's not a Russian agent. He's a Ukrainian agent. It's ridiculous. And now they have abandoned any pretense that impeachment will be about the findings of Mueller. But by not using Mueller, they are proving why Barr ought to be looking at the illegitimate basis for intelligence agencies' 2016 spying on Trump and his campaign. And they are, in effect, legitimizing, without realizing it, Barr's investigation into the investigators. They are scared to death about it, and maybe they should be. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.